Minister, one of the main methods through which cowboy, unscrupulous builders and building contractors deny construction workers proper pay and conditions and rob the taxpayer of, I would argue, tens if not hundreds of millions of euro is through bogus self-employment, a euphemism for tax fraud. Now, what my question wants to ascertain is what are the latest net figures from the RCT1 tax head for construction workers. How many workers are employed in construction under that, and how does the net tax revenue compare to construction workers who are employed through PAYE?
Thank you. I propose to take questions number 13 and number 38 together. I am informed by Revenue that many outdoor operations are carried out by their joint investigation units, with some operations carried out on a multi-agency basis with other departments or agencies, such as the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection and the Workplace Relations Commission. The role of Revenue's JIU is to detect non-compliance with tax and duty obligations, which includes the non-operation of the PAYE system arising from bogus self-employment. As regards recent work of Revenue's JIUs for the first half of 2017, they carried out 5,450 outdoor visits, of which 1,841 were with other agencies. Their officers visited a total of 656 building sites, of which 231 visits were with other agencies. The results of this activity included the registering of 78 businesses as an employer for PAYE purposes, the registering of 685 individuals as employees, and the registering of 145 persons as self-employed. As regards the construction sector, 38 persons were registered as an employer for PAYE purposes, 227 individuals were registered as employees, and 44 persons were registered as self-employed. In addition, 291 individuals in the construction sector were reclassified from subcontractor to employee. The Deputy will be aware that the PAYE system applies to the wages of employees in all sectors, whereas relevant contract tax, or the RCT, applies to subcontractors in the construction, meat processing and forestry sectors. As to the Deputy's specific question as regards RCT-related figures for 15, 16 and to date in 17, I will give the Deputy a table of figures given to me by my officials from the Revenue Commissioner and make that available to you. The figures today, the figures broadly are for 2015, the tax collected under the RCT system was €200 million. For 2016, these are the tax collected overall. For 2016, it was €255.5 million, and for 2017, up to the end of September, the figure was €230.8 million.
Study the details of the raids made by Revenue and JIU afterwards. Those are interesting facts. I will tell you that judging from the raid that was prompted, I think, by the question I asked in July on the Dolphins Barn site, the refurbishment site, that the raid was a joke. It took place in the canteen. People were invited to come into the canteen rather than actually Revenue and the WRC going around the site and grabbing people and asking them for their details, right? So that was it was a way out of actually getting to the bottom of what was going on that site. And I should also add that some of the people whose details were taken on that day, who would have been identified as being employed on that site on that day, only got notification from Revenue that they started their employment a month later, even though they'd actually been working on that site for several months, right? Which suggests a significant problem. But what's interesting, Minister, is you can't tell if these are gross or net figures, and I will put it to you, this is very important. You see, the gross figure in previous years comes down to a net figure of next to nothing when offsets and repayments are taken into account. So we need to get what is the net figure coming in under RCT after refunds and offsets.
I will provide a table to Deputy Boyd Barrett that will provide in a fair bit of detail the different figures that you were looking for. I don't accept the distinction between gross and net taxation. I mean, people pay their taxes and the taxes are collected. But the table that I have available to me here does go through the tax that was collected under the RCT system, any tax that was then offset against tax liabilities and so on. And I'll provide that all that information to you so the Deputy will have it. In relation to the claim that you made there in relation to a particular operation that was mounted in a site which you refer to, I can't comment on that particular operation because I don't have information in relation to how it was conducted. But what is clear to me from the quantity of visits that were made by the Revenue Commissioner and the outcome of those visits that I referred to you, that I provided to the House a moment ago, that they clearly are having an effect in dealing with this issue. If I look at the number of employees who were registered, if I look at the reclassification that took place in relation to individuals, I mean, this appears to be the very kind of activity that you've been calling on to happen. These are the figures in relation to the number of such on-site visits that have happened and the effect that they have had. And the report that I referred to earlier on with Deputy Burton and other deputies, as I said, I will be receiving a report myself from that working group soon, and then the paper that will emerge from that will be published.
From the government on this matter, and indeed the raid that followed the question where I raised this with you on that particular site. The problem is that it hasn't come with a proper outcome, okay? Because the workers involved received notification from Revenue that they started their employment in August, following the question here raised in July, even though they were on site in July and would have got the workers' details in July, and actually the workers were employed from April or May. So what about what was going on beforehand? And is the subcontractor and the main contractor being held accountable for the fact that there was undoubtedly, in my opinion, tax fraud going on prior to that? Okay, and still the record has not been rectified. And the difference between net and gross is very important. I'll give you an example. In 2009, for example, there was 436 million gross tax paid under RCT, but the offsets were 490 million, meaning that the revenue for RCT net was minus 53 million. No tax, less than no tax, came in from RCT, and there was probably about 70,000 workers under that heading. So you have 60 or 70,000 workers working in construction, and there's no tax coming in from them. And you compare that with PAYE, and you'll have hundreds of millions coming in tax. And that's the comparison we need to get to, because the public are losing on tax revenue because of bogus self-employment.
In the Deputy's question, you never made reference, as you could, if you wanted to supply me with details attached, of a particular raid or a particular visit that was made. And if you had given me that information, I might be able to respond back to some of the points that you have made, either publicly or privately, but you choose not to do so. You choose not to do so, Deputy, and Deputy, you come in here, you raise allegations in relation to a particular activity by the Revenue Commissioner, but of course, if you had given me advance notice in relation to that particular issue, I might be in a position to respond back, which you didn't do. In relation to the efforts that have been made here by the Revenue Commissioner to deal with this matter, I've outlined the amount of activity that has gone on in relation to it. For example, if I look at compliance activity in this sector alone, I'm puzzled as to why the Deputy keeps on wanting to interrupt me on this matter. He alleges that nothing is happening, and when I try to tell him, OK, you allege, that's fair actually, you don't allege that nothing is happening, but you do allege that not enough is happening. And when I try to update the House on what is happening, the Deputy wants to continue to interrupt me in so doing. What I was about to say, before the Deputy concluded, was that compliance activity in this sector alone, for example in 2016, yielded €54.7 million for the Exchequer, which is a result of 17,801 interventions that were made by the Revenue Commissioner, which points to how seriously this matter is being taken.